go out and show others. And I'm going to end this. I haven't did much tweeting this week. But the one thing I want to continue to say is that none of us are perfect. And I had this conversation last weekend at Sunday school, is that we don't have to be perfect because God sent us a perfect sacrifice for us. And guess what? He knew who he was before we even got into the situation. So that's why we have chose 1 Peter to kind of go through it. And last week we hit on some stuff last week about the security that's in grace. And Peter continues to tell us that is that first of all, we're secure because of who God is. And so as we dig into today's lesson, we're going to expand on the idea of grace in the midst of our lives. Let us pray tonight. Oh, gracious God, we come thanking you for how you already showed your grace in the midst of our life, Lord, how you have watched over us. And from week past to week now, from last Thursday to this Thursday, Lord, you have showed yourself to be faithful in the midst of all that we go through. That we're still standing, we're still talking, we're still praising your name, Lord. Now as we enter into this time of Bible study, Lord, we pray, we open our hearts and prick our minds, and we might develop a love for your word, Lord, as well as a love for your word to be portrayed within ourselves, Lord. So let's dig into this word, Lord. Go with us, be with us, strengthen us, our mind as we lead. If we leap into this word, allow us to strengthen us to be better people because we've dug into your word tonight, Lord. Now, only God, only you can. It's our prayer. Your Son used to be praying. Amen. Amen. Tonight, we stopped off in 1 Peter, the first chapter, around the 8th, 9th verse. I want to pick us up to see that I keep talking about, when we talk about grace, grace is just something more than we have just at certain times of our life. But grace is always present. Even when we're not called upon grace, grace has a way of watching out for us, even when we don't even know it's watching out for us. And so, as we dig into today's word today, we look at it from the standpoint of the prophets and how the prophets spoke about something that they had not experienced yet, but knew was coming. And I want to pin that there. Do we have such a hope in what God is doing that we speak about stuff before it happens? That we can see past our current circumstance. Even as the prophets of old were being persecuted, they can see the glory of God coming. Even at the word for them, they can see that God was doing something. And see, when we start talking about the security of God, it's just not security of what we are right now. It's the understanding that though things come against me, I can see past this because I have the security in what God says. Because he says this, I'm more for you than the whole world against you. And sometimes we look at our circumstances sometimes overwhelm us. And here, and we don't always pick up on this, but when we look at 1 Peter and we look around the 10th verse, he starts to say something about the prophets and what they have done. He says something like this in verse 10. He says, of which salvation the prophets have inquired and searched diligently, who prophesied of the grace that should come unto you. They talked about what was going to happen to those who truly believed in God. That they looked beyond what they were going through. See, most of the prophets were being persecuted. They were outcast. They were going against the whole nation. But they saw beyond the condition they were in. And only grace can take you out of your circumstance and see what God can do in the midst of that. So the security based upon that says this. Grace has the ability for us to look at the storm, look through the storm, look around the storm because of who controls the storm. Right. I think I should put a pin in it. That even though man looks like they're controlling your circumstances, even though sometimes it looks like society is controlling your circumstances, it's God in the midst of it looking beyond that. Picked up from last week, I said our security is not based upon the things we have here. It's already set up in heaven. Your end is already secure. And guess what? There is nothing that you can do to mess up your end. Because it's not secure in anything that you have. See, I thought about this after I was leaving. I can set some stuff up for my kids later in life and start putting it there. But I can go in that and say, you know what? I ain't saving them now. I'm going to pull it out and pay off this bill. And pay off this bill. And I messed up their security. Aren't you glad God said it's not based upon what you put in?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not based upon what you have, that you can't reach heaven and take it back and pay off some stuff now. He says you can look beyond this because what I have secured for you. And so the prophets could see that. That's how come we have the books of Isaiah and Jeremiah. They look beyond the circumstances and was still telling some folk who would not listen the goodness of God in the midst of their life. That security to know what your end result is. But I like how he transitions from understanding what the prophets had. He says this in 12, he says this, and to whom it was revealed, that not unto themselves, but unto us, that do minister the things which are now reported unto you by them that have preached the gospel unto you, with the Holy Ghost sent down from heaven, which things the angels desire to look into. He said we are living what the Word has already told us. We're living what they can only preach about. We're living what they can only talk about. Now we have a full assurance of grace in our life. We have the salvation of Jesus Christ upon us. Grace allows us to see something or experience something that people will only hope for. When I look at that, I look at the history of our great grandparents. Let's put 4 greats on there and go back. As they look towards who we are today, and they prayed for something for us today, and we are experiencing what they prayed for. They didn't realize in their own life, but they had the hope in God that my children's children will be better off than we are. And we are sometimes so arrogant in the stuff that we have that we don't consider what we have to be a blessing. We're so arrogant that we don't consider that we drive our own cars. We go any place we want to go to. We can sit in any seat in the restaurant that we want to sit in. We can send our kids to any school we want to send them to. I'm talking about grace and action that we sometimes take for granted. And it's amazing that Peter does this. Peter talks about all the security. Then pins these little 4 verses and let us know that what you have is unique because there's some people who did not live long enough to experience what you experienced. And that's the power of grace in our life. But then he does it. It's okay. I'm off my soapbox. For the future folk I'm preaching to, I'm off my soapbox. Because he says, Gentiles, who were not originally a part of, well, it was always there, but we were left out sometimes, seemed like because of Israelites. God comes and brings us into this magnificent relationship. And he starts this off in verse 13. He says something, because grace not only gives us security, but grace changes our mindset. Look what it says. It says this. Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. When you come into the realization of who Christ is, there is a change of mindset. And I like how you use the word sober, because in grace, there's a sense of sobering, that we don't think like we used to think. We don't desire the things of the world like we used to desire the things of the world. So that sober means not necessarily drinking of alcohol, but getting so wrapped up into the world. This idea, and understand he's talking to people who are looking at what other people have and starting to talk about, I want what they have. I want this. Well, you don't know what it took to get that. Don't worry about obtaining those things, because when you have Jesus Christ, you truly have everything that you need. And when we come into that realization, and we stop worrying about what folk may think about us, what stuff we don't have, and then worship God and who He is in the midst of everything we go through, there's a sobering reality to that. That because I have this relationship with God, the stuff that used to drive me doesn't drive me anymore. And I think we get this mixed up. God still has blessings for you. It's just the blessings are not driving you. My whole thought is not the blessings. I'm talking about telling my kids, it's not the big house or the big car. When I get out, it ain't about that. It's about serving God. And when you start serving God, God gives you those things that you need to have in this world. And he says here, he says, once you come into the understanding of who Christ is, the world can't drive you. The stuff can't drive you. Never worry about how to please God. And I've learned this, that he gives you something that the world can't give you. That's right. See, when you start getting the peace that passes all understanding, you're able to sleep at night, that's something the world can't give you because you're not driven by that stuff. But he says the sobering reality of grace is that whatever you need, God has it for you. Once you have that relationship, your mindset changes from what you used to do to now serving God. That's what he says, gird. Now, it's amazing that the idea is first we have a mindset. But the next part it says that we have to protect it. Gird means I got to protect myself. And how you protect yourself is first wrap yourself into his word. But then to protect yourself, if you know some stuff is going to drive you crazy, if you know some folk going to make you say some stuff, stop hanging around those folk who going to get you in trouble. If you know that you're on a diet, don't go to the donut shop when you're hungry in the morning, because I don't care how much you have inside you. If you're hungry at 8 o'clock in the morning and you walk in the donut shop and they just got it just came out the oven, I don't care how much you say, can I get 2 of those to go? extra toppings on it. He says that even in our mindset, we have to gird ourselves up. We have to protect ourselves. It's like saying, oh, now, I'm a super Christian, so I can go, no, because it's some folk, they're going to still get on your nerves. It's still some stuff that's going to draw you away. So he says that, understand that, yes, there's some sobriety in knowing who Christ is. But Christ also knows we flesh. And in some places, we just can't go. Because I don't care how much prayer you're doing. We just going to be real. We're going to be real. That if we put ourselves in the wrong situation, we're going to fail each time. Well, not each time. 9 times out of 10. One time, we might have good enough sense to get out of the situation. But in talking to people always say, you know what? Every time I go around her, she makes me cuss, gossip, and she does this. Every time I go around him, we always drinking. Gird yourself. Against some folks, because I'm on preaching for my own. Because there's some folks, you go around and you lose track of time. You know you're going to be working. I'm not over here. Like, no, I go over here in IT. I ain't going to say who it is. But if I go to IT, Brother Lynch, Sister Williams down there. I know over there. After me, I got 5 minutes before I got my next meeting. I can't go talk to Sister Williams and Sister Brother Lynch because that's more than 5 minutes. So if I already know that, I don't go to IT no more. And here's how I go down there and say, it's a 25-minute conversation. Gird yourself. But I like this. As obedient children, not fashion yourself according to the former lust in your ignorance. He makes a transition. That before we had the right relationship, we were practicing what was wrong. We were trying to outrun folk. Let me paint the picture. We were the first ones to club.
Yep, get in free. Seriously, yeah.
And what line got on? We had our stuff already in the car. We're going to clock out a little early.
That's real, yeah.
He says,
Thank God for the living.
just like disobedient children. You know, children, if you have kids, they in their mind thinking that they're going to outthink their parents. Not realizing their parents just a few short years ago were thinking the exact same thing. And he used the idea of children. And that's why he says children. Because children, for some reason, think that their parents are so old. They forgot the game. Maybe not your children, but I got 3. 2 of them present. The other one at work. They used to always think and say, my son said this all the time, Dad, how do you know? I just know. I just know. And so the language he uses here makes me think about how our children, thinking we're so old that we don't know what's going on, and the moment they get in trouble, they try to figure out, how did Dad and Mom know that? Because guess what they did? They spent all day Monday, all day Tuesday, thinking, okay, Dad gonna do blah, blah, blah. And he do blah, blah, blah. All day Wednesday. And so when Thursday comes, you get busted. How did he do that? I didn't put it down. I ain't leaving secrets. Our former ignorance. That means we lack the understanding that God already knew what he was going to do. He said, now stop fashioning yourself that way. Lord, you already know. I need you every step of the way. God, come into the real realization of who you are in this my life. I ain't trying to shake and dive and hide and slide. Lord, you already know. I'm just going to ask you, if the answer is no, the answer is no. If it's yes, it's yes. See, as your kids get older, they come more direct to you. When they get out the house, they start to have bills. They start to have, Dad, I already know the tone. You already know the tone. And I put that point here is that grace has a way of us entering into God, and God already knows our requests before we even ask. There's a changing in the tone. And before we even ask Him, He's ready to answer it and guide us to where we need to go. There's not a God like we want you to go, but there's a God. It says when we stop acting our way there, stop acting like you got it all together. I would that church people don't walk around and feel you got it all together. I would that preachers and pastors stop acting like y'all don't do anything wrong. I say y'all, us. Like we don't do anything wrong. We're fashioning our way in a sense that kind of puts people away. Well, I can't talk to them because they got a problem. They got my kids are act up and we had to go through some. He says when we stop fashioning our way after the old way of doing things. The old way of doing things, let people know we perfect, we good, we all that, and we breaking down the side. He says don't have to put on any pretenses of who God is. Grace is liberating. Because what grace tell me? They got issues. They got issues. Guess what? Just because I'm in front of y'all, don't mean I don't have any less issues than y'all. My kids, there's a reason why I'm bald headed. My kids. Sometimes my wife don't like me. That's just the truth. I can laugh. Sometimes she just don't. He said this. But as he which had called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. He goes from the idea of sobering, girding yourself, changing who you are. Don't act like children thinking that I don't know what's going on, that you got to throw in all these errors. Tonight he says something very, very succinctly. He says this, because God is holy. Because He is holy. this is kind of hidden. Because we can't be holy without Him. He says, let your conversation, let me put it this way, let me proceed out of who you are. That when people see you, they see you through me. Now watch this, watch this. Me by myself is raggedy and messed up. But when God is before me, because see, the conversation of who you are is out there before you get there. Amen. Your reputation, let your conversation, let who you are be holy. That when folks talk about you, they talk about you first. As who God is. And that God shows you stuff before you, and just in conversation. This lady, at our job, we talked, and me and her husband, both of them are pharmacy at the job, and they are part of the union, so they always have stuff going on and on. And she said something. She said, your posts have inspired us, her and her husband, to be better. We knew who you were. We knew who you are before we really got to know who you are. Something about your conversation with other people should make a difference. I already know that because of my relationship with God, it limits my relationship with certain people.
Yes.
Even before they know me, it limits. Why? Because they know certain things just ain't gonna happen around me. And so they keep their distance. But he says here, we're not to please man. But our conversation, I'm not going to get bogged down in this. But people's perception of you should be based upon who you serve. It should be, it is. People's perception of who you are is based upon who you serve. And I'm not saying you serve Satan. I'm going to leave him out of this. Either you serve yourself or you serve God. And people like to throw Satan and just get people out. Sometimes Satan got nothing to do with it. Right. It's me, myself, and I. Let me let y'all know a secret. Sometimes, even when we're trying to serve God, self comes up and smack folk around. Because sometimes self just want to be bad for a second. I'm just telling you real. Sometimes you just don't feel like your conversation. I got a remedy to that. He says this. Because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. Even, let me paint this picture for you right quickly, and we'll move on quickly here. Have you ever just got so sick and tired of being sick and tired about somebody, and they caught you on that Monday after that Sunday when you didn't get no sleep? And this is going on. This is in August. You're in debt with them from December to August. And this day, you woke up, I already messed up, and it's already 101 outside at 8 o'clock. And you had to park a distance. And all this stuff was good enough. And you said, I hope you run across it right now. Be holy! Because I am holy. Be holy. Not because it's convenient to be holy. Be holy not because you're in the right company. Be holy because I am holy. Even when it's just you by yourself in the car. And nobody else can hear you carrying on and stuff in your car. be holy. This is what he's trying to tell us. Living in a society that does not recognize God is very difficult for us sometimes to stand our ground. And I'm going to footnote to this. Does not mean we have to always be passive. Because Jesus went to the temple and whooped some folk. And I'm not telling you, I'm going to go to work tomorrow, whoop that person that got your last nerve. That's not what I'm But sometimes there is principles by which we have to stand on. That even if it seems difficult, it's still being holy. Because I can imagine how you can politely, quietly, whoop a whole bunch of folk. They say he fashioned a whip. That means he took his time, walked down, I'll be back. Yeah, y'all in my dad's house, y'all messing up. And they proceeded to whoop folk out of the temple. Because this is a place of worship. We have to be able to balance. And this is where our society has failed us as Christianity. Because I got my soapbox last week about this, and says that we have catered to this thought that as Christians we have to be passive. And what we have happened in our society is Christianity has to take a back seat for everything else. Well, it doesn't bother me, so let that go on, let this go on. It never said be passive. It said be holy. And God was holy a lot in the Old Testament. As he destroyed nations, God was still holy. So that's we'll get into it later on in peace. I want to put that piece there, that holiness does not mean passiveness. And so here, he says in all that we do, let's be holy. Going back from 1 Peter, first chapter, he says, we have security because of our family relationship. I told you, family may argue among themselves. But let somebody from the outside come mess with family. Big brother, Jesus is going to step up and take care of some stuff. So that does not mean there's not going to be some tense moments within the family. But when the family stands together, man, this dude had like 4 or 5 brothers. You might mess with him because you know what? You mess with one. Don't mistake them fighting among themselves that you got an advantage because you friends with one of them. Y'all catch that later. Because they'll turn on you hate my brother. Y'all was just fighting them. You hate my brother. You better take out front of you. Family, you have security. You have security because of God's promises. You have security because what he has at the end for you. We're living in grace that people talk about. And he says, then we're called to a higher state. So we cannot think the same. We can't stumble through this life, both physically, emotionally, or spiritually. We have to stand our ground and move forward. Because what? Because he is holy. Because he is holy, our stance should be firm on who we believe in. And to me, that's when we start that society that's gone crazy. It's time out for us to be passive. Now, a little corner of the word, and sin it does not bother me. If people ask me at work about my stance in Christianity, I tell them all day long. And I don't worry about it because they ask me. Now, they know, you already know me. So if you ask me, our director, Milligan, could never ask me a question. Because you know if you ask me, you're going to get the answer that you're going to get. And so when things going to hit you, it look like, I ain't going to say that, but if they ask you, if they slip up and ask me in public, oh, you're going to get it. Please shut him up. Because he keep on talking. So we have to, yes, there are some rules that we follow. And some people, I had this one lady in my office. She said, I don't care what they say, I'm going to have a conversation. I'll be praying for you. Now she's one of my mentees. I don't want to go, she's one of my mentees, so I'm protecting her. She go out there, I said, oh Lord, Sister Johnson out there again, doing her thing. Well, if the Lord is telling you I'm praying for your strength in the Lord, we have to be able to make that stand. And what that comes from is that the sobering idea of reality is that we live in a world there's a pagan world. Right? It was founded upon Christian principles, but now, and because we have knowledge that happens in our society, and it's just not that. I mean, I teach ministers. I teach them at school about ministers stand up and be who they are. And I teach a lot of times that as we as leaders not doing what we're supposed to do is how others are going to follow. Too many bad examples of what it is the food. So I forever do that and preach against that. We stand firm in who God is in our life. That's our lesson for the night. My goal is go on time and on time. Amen? Amen. Any questions or comments about the lesson tonight? Thank y'all. Thank y'all for coming out. Thank y'all. Hope everybody comes back again. We're looking forward to what God is doing in this the ministry here at Violet Friendship Baptist Church. Will I share a question tonight?